There is a bean that grows in desert heat that kills corn in a week. It needs roughly 1/3 the water of soybeans. It rebuilds the soil it grows in. And for 5,000 years, it helped desert farmers survive where modern staple crops fail. In 2024, while government searched for the next drought-proof crop, this one already existed. It was sitting in an agricultural database labelled 2 words: commercially unsuitable. Not because it failed, because it was perfectly adapted to the desert and badly adapted to the system that replaced it. This is not the story of a forgotten plant. This is the story of a crop that solved the wrong problem for modern agriculture, and what that cost us. Welcome to Forgotten Plant Remedies. Every year, the world's largest agricultural companies spend billions developing seeds. Not just any seeds, seeds you cannot replant. Seeds engineered to work with their fertilizer, their pesticide, their system, year after year, purchase after purchase, dependency built into the biology itself. It is not a conspiracy, it is just the logic of an industry. And then there is the tepary bean. It fixes its own nitrogen from the air, rebuilding soil instead of depleting it. It needs roughly 1/3 the water of soybeans. It resists pests without chemical treatment. Its pods mature in 60 days, and when you harvest it, you save the seeds, dry them, and plant them again next season, for free, without buying anything from anyone. In a system built around standardization in scale, that is not a feature. It is a crop that was always going to be difficult to fit. 5,000 years ago, in the Sonoran Desert of what is now Arizona and Mexico, indigenous farmers made a decision that modern agriculture still has not fully understood. In a land where annual rainfall measured just 3 inches, where the ground cracked open in summer and the air reached 118 degrees Fahrenheit, they chose this bean before any grain. Not out of sentiment, out of survival. They planted it in dry washes that flooded briefly during monsoon rains. 2 rains, 1 full harvest, in conditions where nothing else would grow. By the 1930s, Tohono O'odham farmers were producing close to 1.8 million pounds of tepary beans per year. They traded them across Arizona, Sonora, and the Great Plains. When the rains failed, the bean did not. When the heat came, the bean stayed green. And here is what makes this more than agricultural history. For generations, the Tohono O'odham diet was built around tepary beans, mesquite, and desert foods. Researchers who studied the dietary shift that followed the arrival of processed food documented something striking. Rates of type 2 diabetes rose dramatically as traditional foods disappeared. A population with almost no recorded history of the disease before that shift became one of the most affected in the world. The tepary bean was central to that traditional diet. Its soluble fibre slows digestion. Its low glycemic index helps stabilize blood sugar. Laboratory studies have found that certain compounds in tepary beans show activity against cancer cells in vitro. Early research, not a treatment claim, but significant enough that scientists are paying close attention. This was not just food. It was a diet that protected people, growing freely in the sand, requiring nothing for thousands of years. Then the machines arrived. The 1950s brought industrial monoculture to the American Southwest. Government subsidies flooded into corn, soy, and cotton, crops that fit mechanical harvesters that could be grown at massive scale, that slotted cleanly into a system built for speed and uniformity. The tepary bean did not fit that system. Its pods matured at different times, not all at once. They had to be picked by hand. If you waited too long, the pods shattered open, a survival mechanism built by thousands of years of desert evolution and a practical nightmare for industrial harvesting. It wasn't that the tepary bean was suppressed. It was that the entire logic of modern agriculture moved in a direction the tepary bean was never designed for. And in that gap, it disappeared. By the early 2000s, production had fallen to under £100 per year. A crop that had sustained communities through centuries of drought was nearly gone. The 1970s had already offered a warning. Global droughts hit hard. Soybeans dropped in yield. Corn struggled to pollinate under relentless heat. Agricultural researchers, desperate for answers, began testing wild desert plants. They found the tepary bean. still thriving at 115 degrees, still setting pods on almost no water. A USDA researcher measured nitrogen levels in the soil after harvest. They were higher than before planting. The bean had healed the dirt it grew in. The research confirmed everything. Higher drought tolerance than soy, near equal protein, a third of the water, and then almost nothing happened. No major investment, no government program, no commercial rollout. Because the tepary bean still couldn't be standardized, still couldn't be harvested by machine at scale, still didn't fit the system that had been built while it was gone. Agricultural journals labelled it commercially unsuitable. Not wrong, exactly, just a verdict that said more about the system than about the seed. Today, climate models warn that over 30% of global crop yields could collapse by 2050 due to rising heat and drought. The crops most at risk? Corn, soy, wheat. The exact crops that replaced the tepary bean 70 years ago. In 2019, university trials in Arizona and Mexico confirmed what desert farmers had known for generations. Tepary beans produce near equal protein to soybeans on roughly 1/3 the water. The Alliance of Biodiversity International and CIAT is now using tepary genetics to breed drought and heat tolerance into global bean varieties, trying to give the world's food system the resilience the tepary bean already has. The answer to the coming food crisis was not missing. It was sitting in the desert, labelled commercially unsuitable, waiting for the problem to become urgent enough. Around 1996, a community group called Tohono O'odham Community Action began collecting ancient seed lines from elders, seeds tucked in clay jars, seeds that had not been planted in 300 years. Farmers worked by hand, no machines, no chemicals, and called it planting the ancestors. By the early 2000s, they harvested enough to feed families and sell small bags to local schools. Elders said the flavour tasted like the desert itself. Children who had grown up on processed food learned to plant, soak, and cook the same beans their great-grandparents had carried through dry seasons. One elder told researchers, "We grow it because it remembers how to live when everything else forgets." The tepary bean did not disappear because it lost. It disappeared because the world built a food system around different priorities and then forgot what it had left behind. Now, as those priorities start to crack under drought and heat, the bean that was always built for this moment is still here. It never needed saving. It just needed us to remember. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe to Forgotten Plant Remedies and hit the bell. Every share keeps this knowledge alive. The next vault opens soon.